Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, it was day 2 of Badgers camp down in Platteville. Much of the conversation entering the season is about Wisconsin's new offense under offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes. After 2 years of running the air raid that produced the 2 lowest back-to-back seasons of scoring in more than 30 years, Badgers getting back to more of a physical brand of football. The guy that has to face that offense in practice every day, defensive coordinator Mike Tressel, thinks the challenges it presents are going to benefit his own unit as well.
If a guy's eyes go in the wrong place, we all know that there's going to be issues, and there are a lot of challenges that he puts out there in that regard. So I think it is great for our development. The last thing I'll say is just the fact that we're getting punched in the mouth every day. I love the fact that we're getting punched in the mouth every day and hopefully doing our fair share of punching in the mouth as well.
Wisconsin going to return to the field tomorrow for practice number 3 of fall camp before getting Friday off. Turning to the Packers, it was a day off from the field for them, though a number of coaches met the media. That included offensive coordinator Adam Stenavich, who had high praise for first-round pick Matthew Golden, calling him hardworking, diligent, and then he really respects his work ethic. Packers return to the field tomorrow, going to hold their family night on Saturday at Lambeau Field.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
All business owners want the same thing, to make their business succeed. At Rural Mutual, they help that happen. As the 3rd largest writer of commercial business in Wisconsin, they take the time to learn your business so they can properly protect you. Call your local agent today or visit ruralmutual.com.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Brewers were unable to finish off a sweep at the Cubs this afternoon, falling 10-3. It left the Crew 1 game in front of Chicago for first place in the NL Central. Milwaukee gets tomorrow off, be in Washington on Friday. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil-Print.
It's now Vaughn, a drive, left center and deep. Who wrote this script?
I am so glad that Aaron Savali demanded that trade. Swing and a miss from Dansby Swanson, and it's 0-1.
It's a game of people, and those people are at their best self. You know, if Vaughn starts worrying about, like, oh, well, what if next year, what can I, I'm going to set a record. All bets are off.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Some sound from last night. That's Andrew Vaughn's grand slam, and then a little bit from Murphy after the game. Murphy's he's such a blessing. It's funny, earlier today on Bill's show, we aired Jeff Hafley's press conference. I think Jeff Hafley is a good defensive coordinator. I think sometimes Packers fans and Packers media people go a little bit overboard on Jeff Hafley because he's so good at the podium. Now, I appreciate Jeff Hafley at the podium, and I'll be upfront about it because he gives us great sound and he always gives us something to react to on the radio. Well, I think performance at the podium tells me a little bit about how good of a coach you are. It doesn't tell us everything. There's been plenty of great coaches who just give boring, horrible press conferences. So I think Jeff Hafley, maybe his value is inflated a little bit because of his press conferences. Now, I don't think Murphy's press conferences have much to do with his coaching, much of the same. But again, as a content creator and a radio host, I love the guy because he always gives us something good. This is Pat Murphy. This is the full soundbite. You heard a piece of this in the intro, but this is the full soundbite from last night talking about the Brewers clubhouse and the state of things.
It's a game of people, and those people are at their best self. You know, if Vaughn starts worrying about, like, oh, well, what if next year, what can I, I'm going to set a record. All bets are off. Oh, I had 19 steals. I got to get to 20. 20, 19, 21. No one cares. You know what I mean? No one will care about your baseball card. You have an opportunity this year. Try to do something with it. We got a long journey to go, man. Oof. Got to stay sharp.
I love Murph and the sound that he gives us to play on the radio. Just always something entertaining, as opposed to the last guy, who Craig Counsell I think is a very good manager. Just about the dullest human being I've ever listened to speak into a microphone. Nothing personal against him, although personally I also don't like him, but that's That's a separate thing. That has nothing to do with the press conferences. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. The Brewers lose today, and that's where we'll start. But the big picture, and the reason I wanted to start with sound from last night, is because the Brewers take 2 or 3 from the series. I think the series is an overwhelming success. And I think for the first 2 games, we showed that the Brewers really kind of stuffed the Cubs into a locker. It'd be different if they won game 1, 2-1, and then they won game 2, 5-4, and it came down to the wire, and we'd walk away from the series saying, man, those 2 teams are within a hair's breadth of each other, and maybe they are, but that's not the feeling at all that I get after the series. Especially after the first 2 games, I left those games thinking, and I texted this to Austin last night too. Austin Harper, you hear him, sometimes on the morning show, sometimes on Bill's show. He's our resident Cubs fan on the network. And I text him last night. It's like, dude, I'm not trying to rub it in. I don't need to showboat. It gives me no gratification to tweet or to give crap to Cubs fans. Now I think it. I don't need to act on it. I just think it. That's where I get my gratification. I told Austin, like, man, I'm not trying to rub it in, but the Brewers, and I used much harsher language to this, the Brewers kind of stuffed it down your guys' throats the first 2 games. Like, Cubs fans last night had to be thinking, oof. And I did snip some sound from the Locked On Cubs podcast. Our friend Sam Olver will hear some of those just because it's great. It's always entertaining sound from him and his co-host. So we'll get a little bit of the Cubs POV. I'll mix it in throughout the show. Now, today, I think not just because the Cubs won, but it was how they did it. Ian Happ hitting a homer, Justin Tucker with a couple big hits. Like, there are pieces in this game today, if you're a Cubs fan, that might have you thinking, oh, well, here we go. All right, we're trending in the right direction. Some of those big bats, Bush with a homer, Kyle Tucker ripped a couple of balls, Ian Happ with a late homer. There's some real pieces in today's game, if you're a Cubs fan, that you can take forward into the weekend and and say, okay, maybe we're trending in the right direction. But the series, an overwhelming success for the Brewers, and that's mostly where we'll spend our time in tonight's show. I do want to talk about today's game. I think the story of today's game is Freddy Peralta. Now, the bullpen wasn't great either. DL Hall in his second inning of work was poor. Jared Koenig was poor. I think if Freddy Peralta goes, what did he pitch today? Did he make it through 5 or did he make it through 4? I think he made it through 4 today, right? I don't have the box score in front of me. I probably should pop that open real quick. But Freddy Peralta just didn't give the Brewers enough today. He went 4. If Freddy goes 5 and passes the ball to DL Hall, who gets the 6th, and maybe Mears gets the 7th, and maybe Uribe 8th, right? Because all of those guys got to rest last night with Aaron Ashby eating all of those innings after Quinn Priester. This game might go differently. I think this game, the story of this game is Freddy Peralta. And this might be an insane question to ask. In fact, I'm almost certain that it is. But it's sports radio. Sometimes you ask questions because, well, that's what you do on sports radio. You talk about things, even if they seem a little silly, even if there's a show to do today at 4:00. Tomorrow we will talk about something else. The next day we will talk about something else. I think the story today is Freddy Peralta. And I don't think I was the only one watching Freddy Peralta today thinking, are we sure that we feel great about running him out there game 1 of a playoff series? Like, are we 100% positive? Are we completely and totally bought into the idea of game 1 of a playoff series, Freddy's on the mound, and we feel awesome? Just because, I mean, it's not just today. We saw something very similar against the Marlins over this last weekend, where it's like he gets hung up in the first, and he bounced back really nicely in the second, but then in the third, like it didn't continue to go. He didn't reach cruising altitude. He didn't reach cruise control. That's a phrase that I use a lot, right? That second inning looked great, and I thought, okay, here we go. We made it through the first inning. Yeah, he threw almost 30 pitches, but he only gave up 1 run. And now if he goes 5 innings of 1-run ball, you feel great about the thing. You feel great about the start. And then he came crashing back down in the third, and he only ends up throwing 4 innings. I just know that if Freddy Peralta starts a playoff game and it goes like that, I am going to think while watching, and I think a large percentage of Brewers fans will think while watching, God, we're so stupid. Of course this is what happened. You'd feel so stupid, right? I'd feel so stupid thinking that it was going to go differently or if it was going to go better. Recency bias, sure. Absolutely. Because it was probably as bad as he's looked today. And again, his previous start against the Marlins was much of the same. I'm not suggesting that you retool your whole rotation. I'm not suggesting that, I'm just positing. I'm just asking, like, are we really sure we feel awesome about running that guy out there in a playoff game? Today's game was, I think, pretty big. I was listening to Tim Allen last night, his post-game show with Jeff Orlovsky after the game. And I thought he and Orlovsky, the pipe bomb, did a really good job kind of outlining, like, the Brewers have won the first two, but what an unbelievable opportunity tomorrow to kick a team that's already down and really, really put them in a bad spot and to move 2 games or 3 games ahead, because if you take 2 of 3, you really only gain 1 game. Certainly better than losing a game or 2 or 3, but comes out in the wash as 1 game advanced. Again, I still think the series is a big-time success. But in a game like today's, it's like, this is your rival in your building. They're down bad. They know it. They're thinking, here we go again. The Brewers have pulled some devil magic out of their rear end again. Like, from my ace, I want that guy taking the ball in a spot like today, realizing the gravity of that moment and meeting that moment. And I know that Freddy Peralta is not prime Corbin Burns or prime, like, yeah, he's always throughout his career been, ideally a second or third starter because he has ace capability, but you can't necessarily count on it every single time. I would have felt awesome about Freddy today if he had realized and performed as though he realized. I'm sure he was well aware, but I want to see it reflected in performance. I would have felt so great today, and it would have been such a feather in Freddy Peralta's cap to come out on a day like today knowing that you have this golden opportunity to shove it down your rival's throat and have a performance that kind of meets that moment. And it was the opposite, absolute opposite. Now, I do remember Freddy Peralta coming in relief against the Mets last year and being awesome and completely recognizing that moment, realizing that moment, and meeting that moment in the way that he performed, even though when he came in, we're all like, are you sure? Because the playoffs are always kind of weird. Anytime a manager goes to a starter in relief or goes to the bullpen, or playoff baseball is just a little weird. So sometimes those pitching decisions can feel a little weird, and we're not always sure how to feel about them. And I think when Freddy Peralta entered the game against the Mets in relief in Game 3, we're all like, oh, really? And then, of course, you bring the best closer or one of the best closers in baseball in. He gets shelled, gives up the bomb to Alonso. And then we second guess why Freddy Peralta was ever pulled, because he was, second guessing pitching decisions or not feeling great about pitching decision. That's just part of the game. I know that if it's game 1 of a playoff series and Freddy Peralta goes out and does something like he did today or has an outing like he had in his previous start against the Marlins, I'm going to be sitting at home watching on my television thinking I am a complete and total moron for expecting anything else, right? It was an awesome opportunity today to really make it an 11 out of 10 series. I still think 7 or 8 out of 10, very pleased with the result of the series, and that's probably where we'll dwell for most of the show. It's a little awkward because, today's game just ended. That's what's fresh in our minds, and that's what we're going to talk about. But, between now and 6 o'clock, we should find a way and manage a way to kind of zoom out and talk about the series big picture. But the game that just finished, I watched Freddy Peralta throw 4 innings. And if he gets lit up and gives up a home run to Pete Armstrong, I tip my cap because PCA is awesome. But, dude, you're walking guys, you're struggling, you're making life harder on you. That's sometimes the Freddy Peralta experience. And if you do it on a random Tuesday night, because Tuesday's the random day in all these hypothetical situations, you do that on a random Tuesday against, fill in the blank team. What's the perfect team? I want to get actually the right team. Because if he does it against the Reds, I'm mad. They're supposed to beat the Reds. Does it against the Pirates, I'm upset because you're supposed to beat the Pirates. Do it against the Rockies. Come on, they're the Rockies. If he does it on a Tuesday night in an interleague series against the Mariners, whatever. Okay, you got to have a bad start sometimes. It's fine. I would prefer if Freddy could meet the moment on a day like today. And I'm sure he recognized the gravity of the moment. I'm sure he realized he just didn't pitch like it. And that's what worries me about a potential game 1. Because if you get shelled in game 1 of a playoff series, no matter if you're the favorite, no matter if you're at home, no matter if you're great, now you're down in a playoff series, game 1. And I could not help but think about that during the game. And I saw all of your tweets, Brewers fans, today. I know I'm not the only one. So don't yell at me for overreacting on the radio, because I know a lot of you are thinking it as well. I'll just be the one to ask the question publicly on a platform, albeit, not the largest one in the world, but still, people do watch and listen. 608-321-1670. Let's take a call. Why not? A little bit of a de facto Brewers postgame show today. And as the show goes on, we'll talk about the series big picture, which, again, Overwhelming success, 100%. Wisco Sports Show, who's this?
Bill in Boulder.
Hey, Bill, what's going on?
Hey, no, I mostly agree with you, but I feel like a few weeks ago we were saying keep the pitching together, keep the team together. Let's not trade Peralta. But I think if we can get it bad for him, I think it would, like you said, massive success of a series, but the last game sows some doubts.
I think I have doubts. Maybe I think today's just about Freddy. I think that's the only thing that I feel bad about. The only thing that really I have doubt about or I walk away with today, because I think the story of that game is Freddy. If he goes 5 and gives up 2 or 3 or even 4 runs, then the bullpen is better positioned after being rested last night. And I think the offense can chip away at the Cubs. Their bullpen has been worked really hard. I just think the story today is Freddy. I'm not saying trade him. I mean, maybe in this offseason, we'll see. Although his contract is pretty friendly, Bill. I don't know, Bill. Game 1, you run Freddy Peralta out there in the playoffs, and he does that. We're all gonna feel stupid. Why didn't we see that coming? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but do you think Murph would put him out in game 1?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this discussion is pointless, as many are on this show. That's kind of how Sports Talk Radio works. Because who else, right? Like you run Priester out there, don't really do a whole lot. Mizorowski maybe, but what happened with Mizorowski the other night? Mizorowski, to his credit, had a rough first inning that was, I think, less his fault, although he did commit the throwing error, and he bounced back nicely. I would have liked to see that a little bit more from Freddy today. And after that second inning, I thought that he was gonna, Bill. Okay, well, one last thing. Did you see that PFF? They said the Badgers have the hardest schedule in college football. Now, I don't know what PF's rankings are, and I appreciate that, Bill. We're going to talk Badgers, or we'll talk college football in the last half hour. Jesse Temple will be here at 5:35. Both he and Zach on the camp, and then Jesse at Badger Connect putting out lots of practice reaction content. In fact, I think Zach and Jesse are doing an episode of the camp every day to break down practice. They had one out yesterday, and I know Jesse was recording one today. So I think if it's not already up, it might be up right now, but it should be up soon. So a bunch of content. But yeah, their schedule is bloody murder. And I'm not doing a deep dive in every other team's schedule. I don't really care. But yes, the Badger schedule is ridiculous. And it's going to be hard for them to, even if they're a better team this year than they were last year, it's going to be hard for them to become bowl eligible and for that improvement to be reflected in wins. And like I said, Jesse Temple will be here at 5:35. Always looking forward to chatting with Jesse, especially now that we have actual football, or at least actual practices to talk about and actual data points to react to and storylines to follow. When we come back, more of your Brewers thoughts, and we can kind of zoom out as the show goes along. We'll talk more about the series big picture, which was a big success, winning 2 of 3 against the rival Cubs and kind of shoving it down their throat in games 1 and games 2. More of your Brewers thoughts next at 608-321-1670.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
PCA dropped the fly ball. There's no sun. It's inside. Nico Horner dropped the line drive. Shaw threw a ball away. They had terrible at bats with runners in scoring position, and they just didn't look ready for the moment.
That's our friend Sam Olber. Last night I was listening to a little bit of the Locked On Cubs podcast. I consumed a lot of content after the game last night. I listened to quite a bit of Tim Allen and Jeff Orlovsky, the baseball postgame show, because I love Tim. And Pipe Bomb, but Tim's been doing it forever. He had some great calls. Then I'm like, all right, let's see what Matt and Sam are talking about the other side. It was a very sloppy game, both sides last night. The difference being the Brewers had some huge swings and some big offensive moments, and the Cubs really didn't. Today they did. Kyle Tucker hit the ball hard a couple of times. A big moment for Michael Busch. I'm leading the game first pitch with a home run. Ian Happ with a home run later. So if you're a Cubs fan today, you leave the series thinking, well, yeah, we dropped 2 of 3. That's not great. But feel like maybe some of those bats are starting to warm up, and we'll see how the Cubs offensively perform in the next series, because if Kyle Tucker goes right back into the tank, and maybe today was just an aberration. But if you're a Cubs fan, you're thinking and hoping maybe that's the start of something. Maybe they're getting it going. Games 1 and games 2, though, or game 1 and game 2, the Brewers kind of shoved him in a locker. And the Brewers were far from perfect last night. Priester, I thought, did a really good job gutting his way through an outing where some things were working for him, some things weren't. A timely double play or a timely strikeout certainly helps. But the Brewers also just had way more big swings last night. They just kept going offensively. It wasn't just like 1 or 2 swings deciding the game. The Brewers were, in Pat Murphy style, like pretty relentless throughout the night. So even a couple mistakes here and there, it didn't completely kill him. And while the Cubs again made a couple mistakes in the field, I still think you take away that PCA drop or that flubbed ball by Nico Horner at second base, the Brewers still win that game. Bryce Terang, by the way, I would like him to tighten it up a bit at second base. I don't know if it's unreasonable or unrealistic to just expect him to be awesome and mostly perfect all the time, but that is kind of my expectation, because offensively he just doesn't give you a whole lot, unless, of course, you need someone to pop up a bunt. He did an excellent job of that today. But the series big picture, while today was frustrating and Freddy Peralta's performance left a ton to be desired, and I do think big picture moving forward, like, we'll see how Freddy finishes this year. Like, I don't know that I feel awesome running him out there to open up a playoff series in a potential game 1. So there's that. But big picture, the series is an overwhelming success. Andrew Vaughn is doing things in his first, dozen, 15, 20 games with the Brewers that has only been done by Barry Bonds in the early 90s, which is not kind of insane. That is just absolutely and completely and totally insane and very difficult to believe. By the way, your call's welcome on the Brewers. A little bit of a de facto postgame show, but we can also, it's a postgame show for the entire series. 608-321-1670. The live stream is up and running on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Twitter at Wisco Grant. We've had some trades made today. And as is typical, I think you can look at some trades to kind of gauge what the market is like and what you could expect in a market. This is not the most, let's call it, efficient market. Jeff Passan had a story about the Red Sox a week or 2 ago because they'd been playing great out of the All-Star break. And the thought was, well, they're going to add big time. And Jeff Passan had a report about the Red Sox, said that they like to operate efficiently and the deadline is not an efficient market. It's not. You're overpaying for talent at the deadline because as the postseason has expanded to include more teams, it means more teams have a shot. More teams think that they're in it. So there are fewer teams selling than there are buying. So I'm sure you're familiar with this in the home market. That means that things cost more, especially when you have the Angels who are 2 games under 500 and mostly suck. They're like, yeah, we're buying like we buy every year. It's like, okay, you guys go ahead and do that. The Giants traded Tyler Rogers to the Mets. He can be their setup man to deal with probably most specifically some of those right-handed power bats in the Phillies lineup. That's something that they have to consider and weigh as they try to, play well down the regular season stretch and compete with a divisional rival. The Giants, in return for Tyler Rogers, got Blade Tidwell, who we're familiar with, Drew Gilbert, and another player from the Mets. It's not take a prospect and a player to be named later or a prospect in cash. Like, those are legit players. Those are actual players. That's a very, very, very steep price. And I'm not saying that that's stupid that the Mets did that. Well, no. If you think that's a player that you need and you believe in your team and you're investing in your opportunity to win, I think it's very lame when a fan or someone who covers a team looks at other teams and what they're doing and they're improving. You say, well, they overpaid. It's like, okay, well, it's easy to sit on the sidelines and say that, team ABC or team XYZ, stupid team, overpaid. I don't know. You have no way of knowing. If the Mets win the World Series and Tyler Rogers is a huge leverage arm for them down the stretch, then did they overpay? Like, did the Cubs overpay for Aroldis Chapman in 2016? Yeah, probably, but they won a friggin' World Series. And by the way, both Andrew Miller and Aroldis Chapman in 2016 have probably porked the reliever market at the deadline because teams are giving up insane prices for relievers who are notoriously volatile. Like, you don't pay relievers. I don't want to give up anything for a reliever because there's a good chance that next week that guy's going to start to suck and blow. That's just how it works. And the Brewers have really had to avoid having bullpen issues, A, but having to pay for relievers, B, which is a nightmare. And we've seen the Cubs, they give Hector Neris a bunch of money. Or the Cubs are a team, and I was talking about this with a friend the other night. The Cubs are not a team, most likely, that's going to give Kyle Tucker $500 million, right? What the Cubs do is they'll spend $10 million on, Adbert Alzolay or whoever. I'm just making up names. Pay $10 million for Hector Neris, $8 million here, $10 million here, $12 million here. And for the most part, contracts like that to relievers are just never going to work because they're so volatile. You need to be able to develop your own, identify your own, and the Brewers do a really good job of that. I'd feel better if they had, an extra arm just for workload purposes. I'm not saying that they need the nastiest leverage reliever in the world. You need another ideally good reliever who can be deployed to give Abner Uribe a night off or to give Nick Mears a breather. Surprised Nick Mears didn't pitch today. Although, luckily, maybe for Nick Mears and the health of that bullpen, DL Hall gave it up, and then Jared Koenig gave it up worse. So at that point, it's like, well, why bother? If the Brewers are down a run or two, maybe we see Nick Mears today because, to my knowledge, he is available and not going on the IL, apparently, which is fine if that's what they believe. It's just not what I expected, hearing what we heard about Nick Mears, especially considering his workload. Wisco Grebe says, I can't believe the price that the Mets gave up to get Rogers. Yeah, they gave up a lot. And I'm not calling the Mets stupid. I'm not calling, well, that's not an efficient use of resources. Well, guess what? Neither is deferring $750,000 to Yamamoto and Ohtani and et cetera. But the Dodgers won a World Series. So if you can pay the freight and you have an owner that's willing to pay the freight, who cares if it's worth it or not? What's the Clint Eastwood line? Deserves got nothing to do with it. Worth has nothing to do with it. What it's worth to one team might be very different than what it's worth to another. That's just how it works. So I'm not going to, poke holes at the Mets and say, oh, stupid, they gave up too much. No, maybe it's stupid, maybe it's not. They identified a player that they wanted and they paid the requisite price. But if that's any indicator of, what relievers are going for, I don't know. I can't imagine the Brewers paying that sort of price for a reliever when they believe internally, I'm sure, and mostly they believe this correctly, that they're probably good. Could they use it? Yeah, every team could use a reliever, but I don't think the Brewers need to pay freight like that. Now, a bat, I'm not sure. Watching today, I don't think Shoto is good. I know very little about the way baseball works other than the way that it's watched and consumed and the way those statistics are watched and consumed. Shoto is hanging balls, throughout. The Brewers just don't have a lot of guys who can grip and rip mistake pitches like that. Contreras did, to his credit. Maybe this Danny Jansen trade, little fire under his butt. I don't know. I don't know what got into William Contreras today. I have no clue. But I give him credit for stepping up and meeting the moment. Now, he didn't leg out that ground ball to first base, but that mostly probably doesn't matter. Of course, Joey Ortiz was benched at the end. Maybe different strokes, different standards for different folks. I don't know. Contreras gives a lot more than someone like Joey Ortiz, although Contreras has mostly been a defensive catcher. That's where his value's been. It's not like he's lit the world on fire with his bat either. He's just hitting third. Joey Ortiz hitting ninth for most of the game before he's usually pulled to slide Durbin over, or Terang over, whatever. Your Brewers calls coming up next. We'll continue to talk about this series, big picture. I have a little audio from Tim Dillard that I want to play for you next. He joined the Bill Michaels show earlier today, and I thought gave a very interesting take on whether or not the Brewers should add at this deadline. So we can discuss that on the other side. Your continued reaction to the Brewers-Cubs series. They lost today, but big picture, I think the series was an overwhelming success. So more from you. 608-321-1670 next.
This is the on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. Wisco Sports Show will resume in 8 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Number one, you got to be careful. And I know Murph and Matt Arnold have said as much. You don't want to mess with the mojo and the vibes they got going.
Right.
And then you start looking for, okay, where can we improve? Well, if you go get a guy that, is going to play a corner position or whatever, he's got to have pop. Well, a lot of time that pop comes with strikeouts. So now you're talking about, okay, well, they're going to be striking out more. Then it comes with, well, what about defense? Well, their defense may not be as good. So there's a little risk reward there. And the Brewers, so what if they hit home runs or not? If you're winning ball games, you're winning ball games. So I don't know where you're going to go around the horn and try to replace somebody. And then you start looking at guys on the bench. They have guys on the bench that are doing well. They got starters. Nestor Cortez coming back. I mean, there's so many different things that they're able to do. I think going and finding somebody it shouldn't even be on their radar right now. I mean, still something could happen today, or maybe they know something behind the scenes that we don't, but it's easy to just sit there and go, yeah, I need to get somebody. But if you really look at the numbers, I mean, this team is scoring runs, their defense is elite, and their clubhouse chemistry is amazing. So if they go get somebody, it better be the right guy, but I can't even figure out who they think they would try to get and want to get. But if they do, they have to get somebody long-term. A rental right now, it probably wouldn't be a good idea.
That's Tim Dillard. You hear him on the FanDuel Sports channel, pre and post for the Brewers. Then you color commentary in the booth sometimes. They have a nice rotation of different voices, but you hear Tim. It's definitely one of them. A bit of a different perspective on the Brewers trade deadline. And I don't think it's a unique perspective. I don't think it's the perspective of most fans. I think most fans believe you need some sort of a power bat, need some sort of an infielder on the left side to replace or to ease the workload for Durbin or Ortiz, need a reliever, right? And Dillard, and I am always interested to hear what people say who have played the game or have been around the teams that are building the teams that play the games. Like those folks, and Tim is one of them, who sometimes push back just a little bit on the common sentiment of fans. I'm not worried about throwing off chemistry. That's not a concern of mine. Because as I've said, and I say this often, you know what makes the best chemistry? You know what leads the best vibes? Winning! You keep winning games, I don't think anyone's going to be bent out of shape. Yeah, but the feng shui doesn't feel quite right. Man, if you're winning 2 out of every 3 or 4 out of every 5, and you're rattling off an occasional 5 or 6 game winning streak, I think the vibes kind of take care of themselves. There are exceptions, I'm sure. But you look back at some of the best teams through history, you think everybody was best friends? Right? You hear athletes talk about this all the time. Aaron Rodgers talks about this all the time. Well, the best teams that we've been on, the locker rooms have been really close. Aaron, you know why the locker rooms were close? It's because those teams were awesome and you won a lot of games and you had a blast together. You didn't win games because everyone was best friends with each other. You were best friends with each other because you were winning a ton of games. You know what I mean? Like, it's like our college best friends. Were you the best? Were you truly the most compatible and the closest and the most personable with those friends in college? Or did you just have very few responsibilities and go out and get drunk all the time and do a lot of fun stuff? Now, it doesn't mean that you can't be lifelong friends with your college friends, but you get the point that I'm making, right? So chemistry and throwing off I'm not worried about that. You know, Dillard's sentiment of, well, they're winning a ton of games. Where are they supposed to get better? How are you supposed to improve? I think you need power, right? Very simply put, you just need more slug. Well, and Tim's point is, well, then you strike out more. This team strikes out like Like Blake Perkins strikes out plenty. Christian Yelich strikes out plenty. It's not like this team only wins because nobody ever strikes out, right? Swing decisions and zone discipline. Yeah, it's a big part of what this team does. You can give up a tiny piece of that for a guy who can, crank a mistake out of the ballpark. Shota was hanging some pitches up there today. And for the most part, they couldn't really do much with it. Contreras did a couple of times, but he was about the only one. This tweet from Todd Rosiak. He sent this out when we were on break. Pat Murphy pretty much had wrapped up his postgame summation, then offered this up. Quote, disappointed about today. It's still with me a little bit. Bounce back with a homer in the first. Looks like we're going to have another one of those games, and it wasn't our normal. That was the quote. Take that sentiment and apply it to Freddy Peralta. That's how I feel about today's game. I'm just disappointed. I'm just disappointed that his performance did not come up and meet the moment of today's game. They had already won the series, and the season was far from being on the line today. But my ace and my supposed playoff opener, if the playoff started today, Freddy gets the ball game 1. I want that player's performance to meet the size of the moment. And I thought today was a golden opportunity to one more time shove it down the throat of your rival and to really send them into a tailspin moving into the weekend. I thought today was a massive opportunity. And I think for the most part, Freddy Peralta, who was he kind of set everything in motion and set this game up to finish the way that it finished. Not to say that the offense was perfect and not to say that the bullpen was perfect, but the bullpen was pressed into service before it should have been. DL Hall, well, I believe he's supposed to be able to pitch more than one inning. Maybe he can't. So maybe I'll lay my weapons down and succumb. Maybe I'll forfeit that take. Koenig just was crappy. And at that point, the game's over. So I think today, the story of today is Freddy Peralta. And the big picture story of that is, man, I just don't know that I feel great about him in spots like this because we have so much evidence of him coming in and just not really meeting the moment. The leadoff homer to Bush, okay, whatever. He made a nice swing. Bush is a great player. It's the walk to Tucker and then more walks in the third and just kind of being all over the place. Losing complete control of the zone only to regain that control against the one guy you don't want to fill up the zone. Pete Crow Armstrong, who then got a couple of hits because Freddie's like, now I'm going to throw right down the middle. It's like, that's the one guy. Freddie, that's the guy that you should get fast and wild and loose on. That's not the guy you pound the zone. Pound the zone on everybody else, or at least be near the zone. He got Seiya Suzuki to swing and miss in the first pitch of that at bat in the third, and then he threw the next 3 in the dirt. It's like, since when are you just change up guy? Like, when is that, especially to a righty? Like, bear up and in on him, man. He strikes out a ton. It's just frustrating. Probably means nothing, but I'd be lying if I told you that in the big picture, I'm like, like he takes the mound game 1 in a playoff game, and if the start goes like that, I'm gonna be sitting there thinking I'm an idiot for expecting everything else, right? Nick says Ortiz is the weak link 100%. Yeah, he mostly stinks at the plate. He watches strike 1 and strike 2 far too often, and then even when he has opportunities to hit good pitches and he identifies those pitches, his bat path sucks and he pops them up. My chances. Bench is also very weak with Siegler and Monasterio. Yeah, that's another thing. For Tim Dillard, I'll play this piece of sound one more time. He says, well, where do you want these guys to play? I don't know. I see a lot of Siegler and I see a lot of Monasterio. Let's start there.
Number one, you got to be careful. And I know Murph and Matt Arnold have said as much. You don't want to mess with the mojo and the vibes they got going.
Right.
And then you start looking for, okay, where can we improve? Well, if you go get a guy that, is going to play a corner position or whatever, he's got to have pop. Well, a lot of time that pop comes with strikeouts. So now you're talking about, okay, well, they're going to be striking out more. Then it comes with, well, what about defense? Well, their defense may not be as good. So there's a little risk reward there. And the Brewers, so what if they hit home runs or not? If you're winning ball games, you're winning ball games. So I don't know where you're going to go around the horn and try to replace somebody. And then you start looking at guys on the bench. They have guys on the bench that are doing well. They got starters. Nestor Cortez coming back. I mean, there's so many different things that they're able to do. I think going and finding somebody shouldn't even be on their radar right now. I mean, still something could happen today, or maybe they know something behind the scenes that we don't, but it's easy to just sit there and go, yeah, I need to get somebody. But if you really look at the numbers, I mean, this team is scoring runs, their defense is elite, and their clubhouse chemistry is amazing. So
I think, by the way, some parts of their defense are elite. Bryce Trang has shown some cracks. Caleb Durbin, I mean, he tried to throw out. Was he trying to throw out Shaw today? I mean, he's just got a noodle arm at third. And he's acquitted himself very nicely for what he is capable of, for what he can control. Put it this way. I think Caleb Durbin has controlled his controllables very well at third. He has a weak arm. Like, that's limiting when you play third base. Bryce Trang has not been exactly as good as I would want. Their outfield is excellent. I think they're very good defensively. I think they're slightly better than the Cubs. They're not as elite at base running as they have been in the past. I think those edges defensively in the base running, those edges have minimized a little bit. But
if they go get somebody, it better be the right guy. But I can't even figure out who they think they would try to get and want to get. But if they do, they have to get somebody long term. A rental right now, it probably wouldn't be a good idea.
I think it just depends on who and what. But I think it's good insight, and I always appreciate insight that kind of is contradictory to the opinion of the masses, let's say. And I talked about this with Bill earlier today. I think we settled in a really good place and understood each other well. If the Brewers do nothing at the deadline, they got, what the heck's his name? Danny Jansen. And, well, they traded for Quinn Priester and Andrew Vaughn. We just had our trade deadline early. Oh, okay, let's say this is it. They've done all the things that they're going to do. I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to be furious. I'm not going to come on the radio. I will never come on the radio and feign outrage. That's some of the most obnoxious sports radio. Like, I just hate when people do that. I hate when sports radio hosts are like, oh, last night in this Monday Night Football game, everyone's talking about it. The umps really screwed it. Like, I need to find a way to do 10 minutes on how outrageous it was. No. Like, I'm not going to feign outrage. Like, if I'm going to be mad on the radio, it's going to be something that I'm actually mad about. If they don't do anything at the deadline, I'm not going to be mad. I'll be bummed. I'll be disappointed. I'm not going to be furious. I'm not going to be upset. I'm not going to do 20 minutes tomorrow screaming into a microphone about how they needed to do this, that, or the other thing. I'll just be bummed. I'll be disappointed. And for the sake of the radio show, I think it's just more entertaining if they acquire someone, gives us something to talk about, something to react to, something to do. And I think the presence of a new arm or a new bat in the locker room, I think that's helpful to everyone. I think that's a shot in the arm that can impact the rest of the team in ways that sometimes we minimize. Just other than, well, he takes a couple of at-bats per game or he plays third sometimes. Yeah, but what about the bigger picture, the human part of it? The front office showing confidence in the club feeling like they're getting reinforcements. I think that's a part of it too, that Tim didn't really address earlier today. And I'm not crapping on Tim. I think it was an interesting take, and I'm always interested to hear perspectives that kind of go against the grain with what most fans are saying. Jesse Temple's going to join us at 5:35. When we come back, I want to play for you a comment that Jeff Hafley had in his availability earlier, talking about a Packers defender who we are all eyeing this season, a player that's going to need to have a nice year this year, I think, for the Packers defense to take a step forward from where it was last year. We'll do that next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Greg on the Wisconsin.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. Cisco Sports Show. We'll resume in 1 minute. The Cisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
What's different, if anything, about Lucas Van Ness this camp?
He's a year older. He's got another year in his game. I think he's starting to understand the position. How to use his hands, how to set edges, some pass rush tools, some counter moves. I think it was a good offseason for him. Truthfully, I think he had a really good, he did a good job at OTAs. And then I think he left here and he put in a lot of work. He came back in really good shape. He's healthy. I just think he's a year older, and it's another year in the scheme for him where I think he's starting to feel comfortable. I think DeMarcus has done a really good job with him and that entire group. But again, it's still early. So I think there's a lot of excitement for every team right now and every staff right now to see how much better their players have gotten. And I think we're one of those teams that's excited to see him as we get into these preseason games and more practices.
So that's Jeff Hafley earlier today. He spoke with the media, and we can talk some Packers in hour number 2 if you are interested in doing so. I don't know if that answer makes me feel better or worse, or maybe just the same. I'm not sure. Lucas Van Ness is going to have to take a leap this year. There's a couple of things that are going to have to happen on this defense, right? For them to go from what they were last year, which was a very solid defense, to a very, very good or a great defense or an elite defense. Kenny Clark has to come back and show that last year's lackluster year was just a broken toe. So that's a box that needs to be checked. Lucas Van Ness needs to go from being a nobody to being a somebody. That box needs to be checked. And Edgerrin Cooper needs to continue to progress into being a young star. If those 3 boxes are checked, I feel pretty confident that this defense will take a nice little step from where it was last year, which was already quite good, to being even better this year. I'm not even really worried about corner that much. They have a ton of depth at safety. They actually have some really nice depth at linebacker too. When you consider Quay Walker, they brought Pat McDuffie. They have Isaiah Simmons, Teron Hopper's flashed in camp. So it's those 3 things. It's Kenny Clark bouncing back and showing that last year was more about a broken toe than it is about him being over the hill. Lucas Van Ness needs to turn into something, and Edgerrin Cooper needs to progress and grow into this young star that we think he can be. When asked, what has Lucas Van Ness shown you in camp? And the answer is, well, he's just practiced more. He's got more practice under his belt. Like, I don't know. Is that a ringing endorsement?
He's a year older. He's got
like that. And that. Well, what's the question one more time? So I just don't want to misquote. I don't want to cherry pick here.
What's different, if anything, about Lucas Van Ness this camp?
What's different about Lucas Van Ness? That's the question. Okay. To be 100% fair, to make sure we're not miscontextualizing the answer.
He's a year older.
I don't know. I don't know that that's a great start. Like if you were to ask your significant other, you've been married for 20 years, it's your 20th anniversary, and you ask your significant other, what's honey, babe, I need you to tell me, in what ways have you seen me grow? In what ways has this marriage, this union, enriched us? What have you seen change over me in time? And if this is the answer,
he's a year older.
You're a year older. I don't know. Like, let's listen to the rest of the answer one more time.
He's a year older. He's got another year in his game. I think he's starting to understand the position.
Am I nuts for thinking that 3 years to understand a scheme? I know they changed schemes. 3 years to understand a scheme is kind of a long time. I don't, or maybe it's not. I don't know. I'm just trying to be Mr. Common Sense here.
You know, how to use his hands, how to set edges, some pass rush tools, some counter moves. You know, I think it was a good offseason for him. Truthfully, I think he had a really good, you know, he did a good job at OTAs. And then I think he left here and he put in a lot of work. He came back in really good shape. He's healthy. I just think he's a year older, and it's another year in the scheme for him where I think he's starting to feel comfortable. I think DeMarcus has done a really good job with him and that entire group. But again, it's still early. So I think there's a lot of excitement for every team right now and every staff right now to see how much better their players have gotten. And I think we're one of those teams that's excited to see him as we get into these preseason games and more practices.
Were we just doing this, by the way? I feel like I have deja vu. Was I not just broadcasting in Bill's studio like a year ago at this time? And we were talking about Lucas Van Ness. And I think the charge was led by Cone Roller, if I remember correctly. I remember Cone calling and be like, hey, like, shouldn't we kind of have big expectations for Lucas Van Ness in year 3? Like, I'm not the only one who remembers this, right? And now here we are a year later. I guess, did I say year 3? I would have been year 2 last year. Now we go into year 3 and we ask, like, hey, you know, in what ways has Lucas Van Ness gotten better?
He's a year older.
I don't know. First of all, I don't like it starting with although I get it. I talk for 2 hours a night. Sometimes you need a moment to think of your next sentence.
He's a year older.
I don't know if that's doing it for me. We will monitor the situation, certainly as camp continues. 608-321-1670. If you'd like to join us, we are going to take a break. We'll get an update from Zach, kind of reset some of our thoughts on the Brewers. And now that we've had some affiliates, as the Brewers broadcast has ended, the post-game show has ended, and now we get some affiliates, especially Lacrosse and Eau Claire, WKTY, and WAYY Sports Talk 105.1 up there. We get some people joining. We can kind of extend that Brewers post-game show a little bit, not just for today's game, but I guess kind of the series as a whole. I think the series as a whole is an overwhelming success for the Brewers. I do wonder, I'm very interested to see what the Cubs do over the next week, because today there are some signs in there. If I was a Cubs fan, I'd be saying, oh, maybe that was the beginning of something for Kyle Tucker, or maybe that was the beginning of something for Michael Busch. That was a nice swing. The beginning of something for Ian Happ, who looked as though last night that he was going to need an IL stint, and he comes back today and hits a home run. So maybe there are some signs. Or maybe the Cubs lose 2 of their next 3 and the offense goes back in the toilet and it's like, okay, that one game was an aberration because there's 162 games. Yes, you will have games that are aberrations. You will have games that are misleading. So I'm interested to see what the Cubs now do moving forward, because while they won't be playing the Brewers, they're still in direct competition at the top of the division and near the top of baseball, the top of the NL, for potential playoff seeding as well. So we'll have more of those conversations about the Brewers on the other side. Extended thoughts on Freddy Peralta. And remember, Jesse Temple's going to join us at 5:35 to talk Badgers as well. I always relish an opportunity. And I record with Jesse ahead of time because it fits his schedule. I thought this week was particularly good. In fact, Jesse even credited me mid-interview for saying, and now that's a very good question, which sometimes I don't always get from Jesse. He makes me work for it, which I appreciate. A 2-minute update from Zach Halpern. No commercials, no need to switch off. Stay right here. We'll be right back. 2 minutes.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Brewers were unable to finish off a sweep of the Cubs this afternoon at American Family Field, falling 10-3. Freddie Peralta gave up 5 runs, including 4 innings, and allowed Chicago to take control. Milwaukee was able to cut the lead to 5-3 in the 5th before Chicago put up 3 more runs in the 6th and did not look back. Peralta took the loss, making it just 4 innings, allowing the 5 runs, including 1 homer. Brewers got a pair of home runs from William Contreras. He now has 8 on the season. Loss forced the Brewers to settle for taking 2 of 3 in the series, but they still own a 1-game lead on Chicago in the NL Central. The team still have 5 more games to play this season, all of which will happen in a 4-day week of August 18th down in Chicago. For now, they will go their separate ways. The Cubs welcome in the Orioles for a weekend series starting on Friday, while Milwaukee will head east to face the Nationals in a series that will also get underway on Friday.
Small business owners want the same thing to make their business succeed. At Rural Mutual, they help that happen. As the third largest writer of commercial business in Wisconsin, they take the time to learn your business so they can properly protect you. Call your local agent today or visit ruralmutual.com.
Rural Mutual.
It was an off day for the Packers up in Green Bay as they finished out the first week of training camp. They will return tomorrow and Friday before hosting the annual family night on Saturday night inside Lambeau Field. Their preseason opener against the Jets is just 10 days away. Meanwhile, the Badgers practiced this morning for a second time in fall camp down in Platteville. It rained the entire practice, but backup quarterback Danny O'Neill still had a pretty good day after starter Billy Edwards put together a very good first day yesterday. They'll practice again tomorrow. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Kyle.
Here's now Vaughn, a drive, left center and deep.
I am so glad that Aaron Savali demanded that trade. Swing and a miss from Dansby Swanson, and it's 0-1.
It's a game of people, and those people are at their best self. You know, if Vaughn starts worrying about, like, oh, well, what if next year, what can I, I'm going to set a record. All bets are off.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Hour number 2, Jesse Temple in 35 minutes. Tonight's show presented by La Crosse Beer House, the corner of 3rd and Pearl, downtown La Crosse, a place that I've been doing things with WK2I, our affiliate in La Crosse, for years and years and years. I mean, not like 30 years, but like 5 or 6 at least. And it's the spot to go, especially this time of year. I love going down there in the summer because they got those big garage doors that pop open, or I guess they're not garage doors, but you know, I don't know how to describe it, but we all know what I'm describing. You go down there, get a nice mug of authentic German beer, big pretzel, bacon on a stick, spatzel, the brats that are locally sourced right up the hill on the south side, Bubba's Meats. Delicious. Excellent spot. And like their Facebook page, because sometimes they'll have live music or things going on. It's always worth it. And when you're down in the mix in downtown La Crosse, that's definitely the spot to begin. That's your home base, La Crosse Beer House. And starting in 2 weeks, next week I'll be here. The week after I'll be on vacation. And then when we come back, we're going to start once a week having Ryan Wood from Packers News and USA Today, his appearance once a week. So we're going to get Mike once or twice a week, and then we're going to get Ryan once a week as well. The Packers coverage this season is going to be awesome, and that will be thanks to La Crosse Beer House. So very appreciative of their support of the show. So to our La Crosse audience, please support them and thank them for that. And if you're in Eau Claire, Madison, or you're listening wherever, and you're like, all right, well, next time I'm in La Crosse for whatever reason, I got to make a point to stop down there, even if it's just to get a pretzel and a beer and to hang out for a half hour. It's appreciated for me. Because they've done a lot to support the show. So thank them and return that support. Your phone calls on the Brewers. We got loaded phone lines. So let's do it. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Eric on I-90.
Hey, Eric. It's been a little bit. What's up?
It's been a little bit. Just throw past the brew house. Is it the brew house?
The beer house.
The beer house.
Why are you
Just
driving
go
through
by it.
downtown? What are you doing down there?
I'm heading for the district. I'm listening to WKTY. Isn't this what you told me to do?
Well, yeah. I know you're doing exactly what I told you to do. I thought maybe you were going out and about downtown. I'm jealous that you're headed to the district.
I am heading to the district, going up to see the matriarch of the I-90 family.
Nice.
Up in the district there. Graham on I-90. Yeah.
Graham on I-90.
And you know, on the north side there's a little jackknife up at Rose and Highway 35, a little jackknife of a gooseneck trailer. So if you're not going to go north very fast, so you might want to swing over to flip side and maybe, I don't know.
There you go. There you go. Set up shop and wait for a while. Is 16 open yet, or is that all jacked up too?
I think they're going to all be, well, no, 16's all jacked up.
Yeah.
So I think by the end of the season, you're going to call Lucas Van Ness. You're going to say, Lucas Van Less. We need less of Lucas Van Less.
But didn't you hear, Eric? He's a year older.
He's a year older.
He's a year older.
He's a year older.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aren't we all? I mean, that's really baseline, isn't it?
I know.
You're
And Eric, he had to think about it. That was the worst part. He's a year older. Jesus.
Right. Well, you have a good day, Grant. I will let you go here and go Brewers go.
Go Brewers go, Eric. Luckily, you're heading south because it sounds like just about every way to get north in La Crosse is shut down. Just swing through La Crescent. Just go across the bridge. Get over into town that way. Enter on French Island. Why not? Lucas Van Less. Why didn't I think of that? I'm mad.
He's a year older.
He's a year older. I was hoping for something better than that. That's it. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Well, I almost got my wish the other night. I won't say what I wish because the little crybabies are giving me. But I almost got, but that big old lug sucked it up and pitched 5 innings.
Yeah, and struck out 7 of his last 10. He was pretty great after that first inning.
Yeah, he was. I was hoping he was going to change his pronoun that night, but the Cubs stunk 2 nights in a row, and oh my God, today felt like 2016 all over again.
Oh God. Okay, let's hear it. Go ahead. Let's hear it.
No, because the season, if the Cubs were lost today, season's over for winning the division.
They have a 5-game series in a month at Wrigley.
I know, but what are the odds you're going to win 4 out of 5? I mean, the Brewers got too good at pitching.
Sure.
And right now the Cubs, that left-hander off of Freddy with 0-2 hit the gap or a 3-run double. I'm going, but our Japanese pitcher, he was stinking.
Yeah, he wasn't good today. He was hanging a lot of pitches, but the Brewers don't have a lot of batters that can punish that stuff.
I didn't take any calls. I told guys, don't call me. I ain't talking to nobody for the next 2.5 hours.
You were just locked into the game.
Oh my God! It's just like so. Now I'm waiting. I'm talking to Gronk or Siri. One of my Cubs. Nobody's trading anybody, which is not a good thing for the Cubs because man, everybody's holding out. And then I hear today it's like the Cubs are in on Paul's scheme. I'm going. If that happens, I will have a wet dream.
Yeah.
But it ain't going to happen.
Probably, I don't think Pittsburgh's going to trade him. They traded Brian Hayes. I appreciate it, Dave. And Tyler McGill or Tyler Rogers. Not Tyler McGill. Tyler Rogers. Which one? Not Tyler McGill, but Tyler Rogers. Yes. Went from the Giants to the Mets. And the price is big. So the market has been relatively quiet. I think it was Heyman and others reporting that there are lots of teams that are in on Duran, Philly, and a couple of others. But the market is expensive. Like if the Cubs want Suarez and arms, if they want Cabrera or if they want Alcantara, like it's probably going to be expensive, even more expensive than you assume at the deadline because it's an inefficient marketplace, of course, with more buyers than sellers, et cetera, et cetera. But I think even a step past what you could normally expect at the deadline. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant. Darnell.
Hey, Darnell.
Just 2 things. Number one, what would Dave even have a wet dream about? How does that even work? 2.
Yes.
2, the Brewers, they're done. They weren't able to sweep the team with the second best record in the MLB in 3 games, so their season's over. Freddy's washed.
Is it? Let's talk about the Freddy thing. Like, is it reasonable to sit here today and be like, is that the game 1 starter in a playoff game? I don't know. My problem is Darnell is if he rolls out in game 1 of a playoff series and pitches like that, I'm going to be sitting on my couch going, of course. I'm an idiot for not expecting that, and so are the people making these decisions with the Brewers. You know what I mean? Like, that's my fear. That's what I was thinking about today.
See, and we say that as Brewers fans, though, right? So
yes.
we get to watch Freddy do this every 6 or 7 starts, but then the other starts are pristine, six innings and less than 2 runs, right? So that's all the baseball world sees. But we get to see every couple starts, Freddy just have a blow-up start, right? And then we're like, oh, God, please don't let that happen in game 1 of a wild card series or whatever it is, right? And the rest of the MLB is just like, yeah, but he's got a 2.98 ERA and his whip is really low.
He's got 11 wins, doesn't he, too? Is he got 11 or did he get 12 the last time out?
He's got a bunch of wins.
It's 12 and 5.
Great pitcher stat, right? Great pitcher stat. Definitely shows what you're able to do as a pitcher. He's got all those wins. But here's the thing, like, you're not going to win every game, but it does make you think. It makes you think about maybe we want to have someone that doesn't get to an 0-2 count and then waste the next 4 pitches out of the zone, guaranteed. You know what I mean?
Except, and I was driving I brought this up to Bill on the air because it was the beginning of the show. He works the count and is careful around the zone, except to the one guy who you never need to throw a strike. Like PCA steps up there and it's like, I'm attacking the plate. It's like, or maybe this is the hitter you don't, Freddie. You know what I mean? Like, maybe not 4 straight balls in the dirt to Seiya Suzuki. Maybe save that for Pete Crow Armstrong. It just wasn't a very well executed start.
Well, why is everybody that faces Freddie is like Joey Ortiz for 2 pitches and just looks at strikes right down the middle for those first 2 strikes, and then Freddie can't find the strike zone for the next 6 pitches. It's mind-boggling to watch, but it's like sometimes it works out for him, right? And he's able to get out of these jams from just junk, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes you have these days where, when it's 3-2 and you're on your 8th pitch of the at-bat, sometimes you just got to throw a strike, and hitters know that there's going to be a strike, and they were squaring them up today. So it's tough, but it happens. And the Cubs are really good, and they haven't been really good lately. So here it is. So
I think that's a very accurate and summative, if that's a word, phone call, Darnell. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think the Cubs are a very good team, better than they've shown the last couple of weeks. But then again, at some point, you are what your record says you are. And more specifically, the Cubs, like, you are what the back of your baseball card says you are. You know what I mean? Like, Kyle Tucker is a superstar, but for the last month, his stats have not been that of a superstar. And same with Seiya, who's been pretty brutal. And same with Michael Busch, who's tailed off big time in the second half, right? Like, so we can sit around all summer and say, well, at some point those guys are going to get going. And maybe today was the first step. Like maybe that was the first step in all of that. Or maybe it was just a blip on the radar, because to Darnell's point, you play a lot of these games. Not all are going to go well. Not all are going to go poorly. My frustration with Freddie is, like, I think a true ace realizes when you can have a bad start. And you're listening and thinking, oh, okay, Grant, so pitchers have bad starts on purpose. No. That's not what I'm saying. I think even the best pitchers, even aces, have off nights. But I think those guys realize that they can't have those nights or those days on days like today. Right? Or in a playoff game or in a big divisional rival, something like that. Like, I would have liked Freddie's performance to match the moment a little bit more. I think that's what's disappointing. It's not like I'm mad. They won the series 2 out of 3. It's a huge success. And for the most part, looked like the significantly better team the last 2 nights. Like, you walked away from those games thinking, yeah, the Brewers are the better team. Like, significantly. Have way more pitching. And yeah, the Cubs are supposed to have this vaunted offense, but it hasn't shown up for the better part of a month. And at some point, that has to matter. At some point, you can't just perform poorly and be like, well, they're in a rough patch. They'll come around, or they'll do, And I played you this from Locked On Cubs yesterday. This is from Sam talking about the state of the Cubs offense. And I think this has been true. Brewers fans, you have to hope that today was a blip on the radar and not the first step in them kind of getting it going.
And the other thing I didn't like, Matt, is when they got down 4-3 after 3, it didn't feel it felt really done.
Yeah, the whole vibe changed.
Yeah, it just didn't feel like.
Trying to think of an expression, but I didn't want to botch it.
And that's your point about being 23-21 lately. That's what it feels like. A 23-21 team, that feels like a loss. The April and May Cubs, you're down 4-3 in the third, and you talk about this, and air quotes for the audio people, this vaunted Cubs.
And who
offense.
says that you're making fun of now?
No,
I used that a couple times now.
Because everybody just keeps talking about, we don't need
everybody.
Suarez.
Okay.
We don't need Suarez. We don't need another bat. Pitching. This offense isn't good enough right now. They got to get going.
I play you that just to kind of illustrate my point. Like, the Cubs have been really lagging behind, not performing offensively for the last month plus. Today was maybe the start of them getting it going. As a Brewers fan, selfishly, you just got to hope that it's a blip on the radar. And then, for the next couple of series, they go right back to being the team that they've been. because that's a team that the Brewers significantly better than. And we saw that the last 2 nights. Looked a little bit differently today. I think the story's Freddy today. If he has a more normal start, I think the Brewers were very capable. They were down 5-3, I think, at one point. Was it 4-2 or 5-3 before the bullpen kind of quickly gave that lead right back? I actually felt good about that. I'm like, I think the Brewers can come back. I think this is very, very on the table for them. And then the bullpen just kind of let it get away because they were deployed kind of awkwardly. You have DL Hall pitching a second inning, which recent history would tell us Murphy does not like doing. And maybe today we saw why, or maybe today was just, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't take anything away from that. Jared Koenig, I don't know what to do with Jared Koenig at this point. So we'll leave the bullpen discussion for a different day. Today was on Freddy, which is disappointing because he's one of the guys that, like, ideally, like in big moments, he answers the bell. We can talk a little bit more about that on the other side of the break. Jesse Temple is going to be here before too long. Badger Connect, and you hear him on the camp with Zach Heilprin as well. He'll be here at 5:35 to talk about what he's seen at Badgers practice in Platteville so far. It's been very hot and sweaty. I've heard some vomiting. That's just good, gritty, traditional black and blue Badger football. We'll get into that later on the show as well.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
What's different, if anything, about Lucas Van Ness this camp?
He's a year older. He's got another year in his game. I think he's starting to understand the position. You know, how to use his hands, how to set edges, some pass rush tools, some counter moves. You know, I think it was a good offseason for him. Truthfully, I think he had a really good, he did a good job at OTAs, and then I think he left here and he put in a lot of work. He came back in really good shape. He's healthy. I just think he's a year older, and it's another year in the scheme for him where I think he's starting to feel comfortable. I think DeMarcus has done a really good job with him and that entire group. But again, it's still early. So I think there's a lot of excitement for every team right now and every staff right now to see how much better their players have gotten. And I think we're one of those teams that's excited to see him as we get into these preseason games and more practices.
One more time, Jeff Hafley on Lucas Van Ness and what's different this year from last year. And the first words out of his mouth were, he's a year older, which in and of itself means absolutely nothing. It could mean that he's taken that year to learn more pass rush moves and to better understand the scheme and all those things. And for a player who's a project, it's not unreasonable to think that another year could have that effect. It's just not exactly the ringing endorsement that I wanted it to be. I don't know what I wanted. I wanted it to be something more than that.
He's a year older.
Like that doesn't make it move for me. So that's on the table. We've been discussing that a little bit, taking your Brewers phone calls as well. And I explained, we talked about this on Bill's show earlier today too. Bill said, will you be mad if the Brewers don't make a move? And we both kind of settled on, well, I'll just be bummed. I'll be disappointed. Because I feel like there's an angle here. I feel like there's a path with all of the pitching that the Brewers have to go out and get something to supplement the team. And if they don't, I'm not going to feel like ownership or Matt Arnold completely screwed this team over and nothing like that. I'll just be bummed out. Q on live stream says, IMO, the season ends tomorrow without a major move. That isn't coming. I really feel bad for Brewers fans getting their hopes up once again just to be let down by Mark A again this season. And Q, I will continue to point out, Mark A didn't blow that save against the Mets last year. He didn't blow 2 separate leads to the Diamondbacks 2 years ago like Burns did. He didn't fail to cover first like Payamps did. Like, also, I don't know that money is really the thing at the deadline. Like, yeah, the Brewers probably don't want to take on $100 million in payroll. But for a reliever or a player like Suarez, and I don't know how much Suarez is making, but I don't think it's cost prohibitive. I think it's a matter of resource allocation, which is more Matt Arnold's thing. And the Brewers have been plenty good to win some of these playoff series. They just haven't. I don't put that on the owner because I don't just look to blame all of my issues on the rich. I blame my issues equally on everyone else. Nothing is my fault. I blame plenty on other people. It's just, I blame it on the rich and the poor and everyone in between. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
This is Louie in Eau Claire.
Hey, what's going on, Louie?
Hey, Grant. Earlier this year, Murph said, something to the extent of everybody on the pitching staff got to be able to, perform in high leverage situations, starters, bullpen, all that. We really don't have kind of long relievers to just mop up innings. And I agree with that. Now, on the offensive side of the ball here, I think there's 13 spots. What value are Andrew Monasterio and Anthony Ziegler providing? I'm not hitting on those guys. I just don't see, besides taking up a roster spot, what are these guys, what value are they providing? And I guess that's why I'm not expecting huge moves at the deadline. But if both those guys have spots on the 25-man tomorrow, it's just to me it seems like the Brewers are operating on basically a 23-man roster if those guys are still there. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the larger point there, Louie, is that, there's a lot of Brewers people or Tim Dillard, like pundits or analysts. I played the sound earlier where it's like, well, where are they supposed to improve? It's like, well, Anthony Ziegler gets a lot of at-bats and Monasterio plays a little. Like, I don't know if Durbin was playing every day and performing at a high level, then I would maybe be a little bit more skeptical. Well, how do you improve at third base? Durbin's great, but the Brewers don't think he can play every day because they haven't been playing him every day. So that's the Brewers. That's clear evidence from them, not from me.
Yeah, I'm not hating on any of those guys or even, Ortiz hasn't done much, but you're right. I think it's not that Durbin can't be an everyday player in the future. I think that possible. But if I'm a Brewers fan, tomorrow I want Ortiz and Durbin, if they're not shipped out in a trade somewhere, taking the spots that were held by Monasterio and Ziegler, and 2 better players playing on the left side of the infield is kind of how I think about it. I'm not expecting a brand new shortstop and a brand new third baseman tomorrow, but it'd be nice.
Yeah. Oh God, wouldn't it be nice? I appreciate the call, Louie. I don't understand. I don't understand the deal with Ortiz. I mean, I understand Murphy's frustration because Ortiz mostly stinks and the swing decisions have been bad. And that's a big sticking point for the Brewers. In fact, that's probably a big reason why Andrew Vaughn has been successful. I saw Dan Simborski, Fangraphs, tweeted Andrew Vaughn out of zone swing percentage, career 32% with the White Sox this year, 36% with the Brewers, 22%. Just swing at the right pitches. You'd be amazed at the results. And Joey Ortiz has failed to do that. And the thing about Joey Ortiz is he's not a Javi Baez or PCA where, yeah, he swings at some bad pitches, but man, he can crush them. Like, no, Joey Ortiz isn't capable of crushing pitches in the zone, let alone out. So even if Joey Ortiz swings at all the right pitches, he's still a well below average offensive player. But we're going to run him out there and then bench him publicly towards the end of games any chance that we can, or blast him in a press conference, or get in his ear in the dugout in front of the cameras. Like, okay, well, if he's that much of an ordeal, then replace him. Or if you don't think Durbin can play every day, get someone who's not Anthony Siegler, with all due. I don't want to be told by the Brewers and those who cover the Brewers that, well, where do you want him to improve? They have the best record in baseball. If you acquire someone, where are they going to play? I don't know. I'll take that and I'll listen to that reasoning when you stop benching Ortiz and when you play Caleb Durbin every day. If those two, and I'm not even saying that those are the right things to do. I would love an upgrade over Ortiz. And if you don't think that, that Durbin can play against righties the same way he can play against lefties, fine. But then where will they play? The other half of the platoon with Caleb Durbin. That's where they'll play. So look, you want to tell me, hey, we love the guys we have. We don't want to change a thing. Fine. Then love the guys you have. You know what I mean? Then stop publicly lashing Joey Ortiz every chance that you get, even though I think it's deserved because he's not good, but you're choosing to continue to employ him and not seek upgrades if you don't do anything at the deadline. So I just want the actions to match the messaging that I'm hearing around the deadline. That's it. A little breaking news, and this is going to be for the people who are on Twitter, so I'm sorry if you're not on Twitter. I realize the internet isn't real life for many folks. It's probably not real life for me, but it's my own problem. I'll deal with it. So Onabam, Onabam fan, has been doing a Ken Rosenthal bit for like a week, and it's very funny. The problem is I have tweet notifications turned on for Ken Rosenthal and Onabam. So, like, when I get a Ken Rosenthal reply, I can't tell if they're real or not. This is the actual Ken Rosenthal. The Phillies apparently are close to acquiring Juan Duran from the Twins, who completely quit at Target Field today. Like, that team is cooked. They should trade Joe Ryan. They should trade Duran. They should trade everybody. They should trade the other guy, too, the reliever whose name is, it's not Gavin Lux, but it's something like Gavin Lux. Something Jax, Griffin Jax. I told you. Gavin Lux, Griffin Jax. I told you, something like Gavin Lux. They should trade all those guys. What a bunch of losers. They completely mailed it in over the weekend. And I understand the trade deadline's hard, but Jesus. So the Phillies are getting an elite reliever. The Mets already added Tyler Rogers. Yes, not Tyler McGill. Tyler Rogers earlier today. So if there's any other breaking news, we can address it on the other side of this break. But when we come back, 5:35, Jesse Temple is going to be here. Discuss the latest from Badgers practice. Look forward to what's going to come this season. I asked specifically, we talked a little bit about the quarterback room, not just Billy Edwards Jr., but the other guys, because I think an interesting storyline for me this season is the quarterback for 2026. Is that guy in the roster right now? I would prefer to not do another senior graduate transfer next year. So do we think whether it's Danny O'Neal or Carter Smith is the guy for next year currently on the roster? I'd like to think so. That's one of the things that I discussed with Jesse Temple. You heard that next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Jesse. Jesse. Hey, Jesse. 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 Jesse.
Jesse Temple going to join us momentarily. Juan Duran has been informed Twins are finalizing deal to Phillies. That's John Heyman a minute ago. 2 top prospects. And as Jeff Passan reports, the biggest move of the deadline so far is almost complete. So the Phillies getting very aggressive. The Mets getting very aggressive. Who are you, Matt Arnold? Only time will tell, I suppose. My stance is if the Brewers don't do anything crazy or don't do anything at all, I'll be disappointed. I'm not going to be furious. But I will be disappointed. I think there's a difference there. We can talk more about that at the end of the show. And certainly tomorrow, will the deadline or when the deadline will have come and gone. Jesse Temple, The Athletic, and the camp. Zach just posting a new link to the camp, by the way. Day 2 of preseason practices, breaking down what we saw on a rainy field at UW-Platteville. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for all shows this season, and you can find it, The Camp, on YouTube, an excellent podcast. Zach and Jesse, we will have half of that duo. Jesse Temple joins us now. Jesse Temple is here, and we have we have something closer to actual football to talk about. We have actual practices. They're down in Platteville, and you've been there throughout the week. And I was listening to you and Zach on The Camp earlier today talking about, the travel and the production. I know very little about you other than your sports coverage. You're very businesslike. I didn't know you were a fan of The Rewatchables. That is a podcast that I occasionally enjoy. Do you have a favorite episode or a favorite movie that they've done? I'm kind of curious.
Oh, man. Huge fan. I will often re-listen to ones. Weirdly, I was jonesing to watch the movie Wall Street, which is from 1987. Michael Douglas won an Oscar, and Charlie Sheen. And I watched the movie and was like, oh yeah, there's a Rewatchables on it. So I was just listening to the Rewatchables on that. But yeah, I could go down the list. Huge fan of Blue Chips. Anytime Ryan Russillo was on, he was absolutely cooking on the town. This is why everyone came to listen to your program, is for me to give #hot takes on a different podcast that isn't even my own.
I like the No Country for Old Men with Bill Hader. I've listened to that multiple times because I like that movie. And I like the one on Fletch because that's one of my favorite movies as well.
Me too.
Is the town,
Great theme song.
Right? Is that is the town with Matt Bellany? Is that like you listen to that?
No. My bad. Maybe
was
I
it the
wasn't
press
clear.
box?
Ryan Russillo joined Bill Simmons for Rewatchables to talk about the movie The Town with Ben Affleck. So
okay, because The Ringer, I think they also have, which I like. I don't know why, because I don't have any. It's just entertaining to me, but interesting. All right, I just like learning a little bit about. I think people want to know a little bit more about you, Jesse. Let's start with Billy Edwards Jr. You and Zach in the camp yesterday both seem really impressed by his throws, his ball placement, his confidence. Let's start with the quarterback.
Yeah, I thought he had a really good day one. And I should preface all this by saying, like, they're not in full pads. A lot of the drills they're doing are what's called skeleton, which means they put a marker down on the field, basically, like a bunch of flags, to simulate linemen. There's really no linemen. It's like a 9-on-7, 7-on-7 type of situation. So there's no pass rush. But you can still see the guys running their routes. And as you said, it may not fully be football, but it's some football. But even in 11-on-11, I think he had a handful of good throws. His best throw, there was one in 11-on-11 that was down the right sideline for 30-plus yard gain. But in skeleton, he threw just an absolute perfect ball along the left sideline. I think it was to Vinny Anthony before he was even out of his break. And that takes a lot of time to understand the timing and know those guys. Now, day two was a little bit different. We're coming off that earlier today. It's been very rainy all day, and it was rainy in Platteville. So it was harder, I think, to get stuff done and be more effective. But Billy has been everything that Wisconsin wanted from the outset in terms of leadership. It's just being as consistent as he possibly can. And at his best, I believe he can be a difference maker for this offense and not the quote unquote game manager that many Badgers quarterbacks, I think, in previous years have been labeled.
Well, and you and Zach both talked about his command, his confidence, right? Stepping in and being the guy. Is it on any higher level or is it any more obvious with Billy Edwards than maybe with the last couple? Are there any differences in terms of voice, command, leadership, confidence, those sorts of things?
Billy is more of a vocal leader, certainly, than a Tyler Van Dyke. I think Tanner Mordecai had those qualities as well. And in part, it's the situation in the room, but also just who these guys are. Similar between Tanner and Billy in that they came in, they were the clear-cut number one guy. They'd already been a starter at a major program. And so I've seen that. I mean, certainly I've been around this program quite a bit this summer, and he's extremely personable. And again, those don't necessarily win you games, but it doesn't hurt to have that out of your quarterback. And you can see it on the field too in practice, the way he's directing guys and instructing them on where to line up. He clearly has a firm grasp of this offense, which is a good thing because he has only been here 6 months and is only going to be here another 6 months.
Well, it might not directly win you games, but if it can make the Monday through Friday better and more productive, right, that can help lead you games. So I guess it's, this chain of cause and effect. So Jesse, I was writing down questions to ask you earlier. And when I wrote this one down, I almost wanted to save it for last, but we're talking about quarterbacks. I see a lot of praise for Danny O'Neal. And I was thinking, this will be the third straight season that Wisconsin's had a senior transfer quarterback. And I want to know, in your opinion, if you had to guess right now, do you think the 2026 starter is on the roster right now?
What a great question.
I think so. I think so too. I'm excited. I think this is interesting.
Yes.
You think so?
For Wisconsin's sake, I mean, I hope so. But look, we saw what happened last year. We were asking this question at various points last year, and the answer was no. because everybody left other than one walk-on quarterback. The difference here is I think they've got guys that they can bring in to compete for that job next year. You have Danny O'Neil, you have Carter Smith, and you have Hunter Simmons, who's got, I think, a year left. He came from Southern Illinois. That's another thing that Zach and I were talking about after the first day of practice is Hunter Simmons is getting some significant reps with the second team offense, sort of rotating with Danny O'Neil. I thought he was brought in from Southern Illinois as just an extra body in the room, but he has some experience. I was very impressed with Danny on day 2. Again, a lot of the throws that he was making were during skeleton. You could see Wisconsin's football social media account posted one of those throws to Joseph Griffin Jr., who made an outstanding diving catch. His mobility is a problem to the point that there was actually a play Wednesday where he got out of the pocket, rolled around to the side, and churned upfield. And I think someone on defense touched him, which is an absolute no-no. I don't know how strong the tackle was, but there were dudes getting each other's faces. But that's because of the kinds of problems he can create.
So you mentioned how all of the quarterbacks transferred out, and that'll happen when an offensive coordinator leaves. So Phil Longo's departure, those were his guys, the locks, and then the other guy, maybe Mettauer as well. Do you think Jeff Grimes' offense now presents a little bit clearer picture and easier path for some of the, Carter Smith or Danny O'Neil to say, okay, I grasp this system, I fit in the system, I might not be starting this year, but this offense and this offensive coordinator has clearly outlined and positioned an offense for me to feel good about my future here in maybe a way that Phil Longo's offense didn't with previous guys?
I don't want to say easier path because they're always going to bring people in to compete. They've got Ryan Hopkins committed in the next recruiting class. I don't know what the room is going to look like. I think when Luke Fickell got here, he talked about how he didn't want to be a transfer portal team, and things have changed even since when he was hired in November of 2022.
Isn't that crazy?
Every team, unless you're Dabo Swinney at Clemson, is a transfer portal team. I just know they don't want to go out every year and get a one-year guy as your starting quarterback, but if he's the best player, by all means. What I think is better for the quarterbacks now is this offense, I think, helps them in ways that Phil Longo's offense didn't. And Luke talked about this, has mentioned it all offseason. If you don't have elite level quarterback play in that Phil Longo offense, you are going to struggle, where I think you have help in a way in Grimes' offense that you just didn't before because of the physicality. So there's that. But no, I mean, I don't think anything is easy, but I think Danny O'Neil, it's quite a coup to get a transfer guy who's willing to come in, understand his role as a backup at least for a year. And yet he has already been a full-time starter for an entire year as a freshman when he was at San Diego State. So it's not the worst situation for Wisconsin to be in. And of course, this is part of why they went and got Hunter Simmons too. Wisconsin has a history, as you've seen, of quarterbacks being injured. So if that happens, they have people who are capable.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because Fickell talked about that, and that's probably not something that I've discussed and shared on the show enough, is that idea of, well, when the quarterback isn't great, or when you're playing a backup, or when they're having a bad day, there's some more fail-safes in this offense now, and devices to pick up that quarterback if they're not playing at an elite level for whatever reason. Jesse Temple is here, Badger Connect. You have a story today about Trech Kahuna. We at one point thought he was going to be gone, and he rejoined the show. And I think you've rejoined the program, and you've talked before about the wild path that brought him back. But can we expect him to be a big time playmaker down the field in this offense this year from what you've seen so far?
Well, I think certainly with the speed, it's going to be outrunning guys down the field. He's not the biggest guy, so you're not going to see him beating a lot of people on 50-50 balls, because some of those DBs are certainly going to be bigger than him. What has stood out to me, and this is really in general with the wide receiver group, but Jeff Grimes, his offense in large part is predicated on a lot of movements and shifts, but these wide receivers are getting the ball in the backfield a ton in a lot of different ways. And I think it's something that was maybe talked about with Trech previously, but he ended up with 1 carry last season. I will certainly take the over on that this year. Get the ball to your playmaker in space, and Trech can make something happen. So I think you're going to see that out of him. But yeah, that was a story. I put it out there today because the wide receiver spoke after practice, and that was a big storyline. But I wrote about it last month, where Trech was talking about his offseason journey. He entered the transfer portal. You can check out the story at Badger Connect, but it was absolutely wild. He's in the shuttle at the airport getting ready to take 4 visits to other schools when Kenny Guyton calls him and says, Jeff Grimes wants to talk with you. And Grimes mentioned this week as well, but it was supposed to be like a 30-minute talk, ended up being 3 hours, and they really connected. And it's a good thing for Wisconsin because they got a playmaker back on the roster.
Let's talk about the lines a little bit. And if you want to go offense or defense, I just know that the Badgers have not been big enough and strong enough, especially in games against Iowa, Minnesota. I know you have a Badger bite up with Joe Thomas and Riley Mahlman. So the offensive line is a focus too, and more of a focus probably with Jeff Grimes. But the defensive line, that's an area that needs to get bigger and stronger as well. So talk about the trenches and what you've seen from them, both sides of the ball so far in Platteville.
Well, starting with the defensive line, obviously the big storyline this offseason was how much bigger they got. You can go down the roster and see how many 300-plus pounders there are. I believe of the top 60 linemen that played a year ago, the average weight was 295 pounds. And Luke talked about that ad nauseum this offseason about how they kind of wore down and just were not strong enough during that 5-game losing streak. I think the outside linebackers have been really solid here early in camp. I wouldn't necessarily say any defensive lineman has stood out, though they've got 2 interior guys that are sort of just clearing the way for other people. You know, Daryl Peterson gained a lot of weight. He's put his hand in the ground. He had a couple really good plays today. One where he stuffed a running back for like a 1-yard loss, and another where he came off the edge and got a sack. And a name that we've not really talked about is Mason Rieger, because he was hurt during the spring. He transferred from Louisville, but he's getting a ton of snaps out there. And I think he's going to be a really good addition for this team. I just did a story talking with him. He's a very unique person. He's got an Instagram following that has really become sort of motivational. He posts something every day. He started this in January. He's on like day 190, and he's gone from 2,000 followers to over 30,000 followers. But he talked about how important following your plan A is. And like he said, basically, I'm football until the wheels fall off, and I want to go all in on this. And I told Zach this, but you can sort of see it in the way that he plays with the passion and the energy. So again, it's very early, but he is someone who has stood out to me. And offensive line wise, just real quickly, Grant, I mean, we knew about 3 of the guys that were going to be starters. You have Joe Brunner at left guard. You have Jake Renfro at center, Riley Mahlman at right tackle. It was, what does left tackle and right guard look like? Well, they brought in Davis Heinzen from the transfer portal in that spring window because Kevin Haywood tore his ACL. Heinzen started 36 straight games at Central Michigan, including 30 as a tackle. So he's going to get every opportunity to be the starter. What's interesting is that right guard, they had Emerson Mandel on day 1 out there to start. On day 2, he was in the same role, but halfway through, they started using Makari Kadenko. They even used Colin Cubberly, who's a second-year player. So it still looks like there's some competition at right guard, but those are kind of the guys you're looking at as your top offensive linemen, and they need to be really good this year if they want to restore Wisconsin to what it used to be.
Yeah, both lines, offense and defense, are going to be a big part of any turnaround, right? Holding serve against your rivals, which they haven't been able to do, but also at some point, if you want to get a signature win against Oregon, Michigan, Ohio State, right, you're at the very least going to have to hold serve on the O-line and give the other parts of your team a chance. So I know you and Zach are coming out with a new episode of the camp basically every day, recapping practice, talking about that. Is there anything else that we should watch for at Badger Connect as you've been down in Platteville covering all of the, all the activities?
Well, you mentioned the latest video that we have. I certainly think it's worth checking out. It's cool. We do this weekly Badger Bites video series, and the one for this week is Joe Thomas, who is the greatest offensive lineman in football history. Certainly one of, maybe the, I don't know. Hard to argue with the credentials. But sitting down with Riley Mahlman and going over the film in the offensive line room, they met for over an hour. The video is more than 30 minutes, and it's just so fascinating to hear the intricacies of offensive line play because most of us don't understand all that goes into it, and I will say myself included. And everything Joe says is like gold because he's such a brilliant mind. So they watch film of Riley. What I think is interesting, too, is some of the film they watched was of Alabama last season, and they're going to play Alabama again in a few weeks. So it's really fascinating to kind of get a mindset into what Alabama does and how you combated that. And then they also watched some grainy VHS footage of Joe Thomas just destroying dudes 20 years ago. So it's a lot of fun. I will definitely plug that. Be sure to subscribe to Badger Connect. And we have another one of these videos coming in a couple weeks with a former player and a current player that is pretty awesome as well.
Well, we'll look forward to that. Enjoy your podcast-filled commute. If you ever want to listen, if you ever need something to listen to and you need to hear someone scream about the Brewers, you can always check out my show as well, Jesse. But I appreciate your time. Enjoy the practice down in Platteville. Thank you.
Thanks, Grant. Talk soon.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
All right, real quick here. Austin at the game last night at American Family Field. Did you say to your friend, if Andrew Vaughn hits a grand slam here, I'm walking out?
I leaned over to one of my friends. I was like, if Andrew Vaughn hits a grand slam right now, I'm walking out of the stadium. First pitch, nuked.
So you didn't walk out.
Well, I asked them, if you guys want me to leave, I'll leave right now. I was their ride, so they made me stay. I would have left. Could have left.
A little bit of Ebo and Austin in the morning show this morning. Austin was at the game last night. That's why his voice sounds bad. And as I very, very respectfully, with all due to Austin, as I said on Bill's show earlier today, it's not like Austin has... Like, I'm trying to think of he doesn't have a Frank Sinatra level radio voice. Okay. He's not Vin Scully as it is. But then he goes and screams his head off. You know, Austin probably smoked a pack of cigarettes too there. You know, like not the best vocal performance from Austin this morning again. But again, one more time, like he normally does not. He doesn't have the Rush Limbaugh voice as it is.
All right, real quick here. Austin at the game last night at American Family Field. Did you say to your friend, if Andrew Vaughn hits a grand slam here, I'm walking out?
I leaned over to one of my friends.
That's not great.
I was like, if Andrew Vaughn hits a grand slam right now, I'm walking out of the stadium.
Listen to this voice.
I was like, if Andrew Vaughn hits a grand slam right now, I'm walking out of the stadium.
Poor kid, and that's exactly what happened. First pitch of the at-bat, just jumped on it. And I think as we get closer to the trade deadline tomorrow, sure, the Brewers could use a reliever, but I tell you what, with what Tyler Rogers went for and what Yohan Duran, what Duran went for in Minnesota, like that is a steep price. I wonder what a Nestor Cortez could go for. Bag of balls. Who wants Nestor Cortez? We'll give you Nestor Cortez. Oh, you're not sold? Well, what if we're telling you you'll only get him for this year? He's a rental too. Oh, sign me up. I can't stand Nestor Cortez. I hope they trade him. I don't like him. I never like the move. Durbin has been the redeeming part of that trade return, which is shocking. Considering I didn't really think that highly of Durbin. Cowdy Mike texts in, says, Grant, I'm guessing the Brewers are going to make an under-the-radar type trade to bolster the infield lineup. What team and who? I don't know. But there's got to be one team other than Arizona that needs what the Brewers have, and they can give the Brewers what they need. Brewers will give up a couple prospects, maybe a rostered player or two, likely pitchers. Halfley never once mentioned one tangible aspect that Lucas Van Ness has improved on. Strength, speed, agility, leadership. I think leadership would be an intangible. Although we talk about leadership so much, I'm starting to think that maybe that's a tangible. His comments were rather blah. Guess we will see. They absolutely were. Gordon in Lacrosse says, you just made the point that the Cubs haven't been doing good for the last month and that we had to start looking at that more seriously. I'm not sure what you mean by that. What about the Brewers? At what point do you say maybe this team is pretty good? Maybe we don't need to trade for anyone. I think they are very good. I think they could be better, though. That's my point. I don't think that the Brewers are skating by on smoke and mirrors. They do a lot of things well, and they're deep as hell, and their pitching's good. But I think, guys, you get into playoff series, one or two swings can just, define the whole series. And I just don't think the Brewers have enough of those guys. And you saw it today with Shota. Shota was hanging a bunch of pitches. He couldn't do anything with it. Other than Contreras, tip of the cap. I don't know where Contreras got that today, but happy for him. Hopefully that gets him going just a little bit because he didn't have a home run since June 14th. I thought it was 15th. McCalvy tweeted 14th today. Second week of June. Call it even. Whenever it was, whatever exact date it was. It's been a month and a half. So I hope for that reason that he gets it going. Maybe today was the start of something for him, but it could also be perceived like maybe it could be the start of something for the Cubs. Like maybe that's the beginning of Kyle Tucker figuring it out. Maybe that's the beginning of Michael Busch turning it back on, or Ian Happ not sucking as he has done most of the year, which we've talked about. So we'll circle back on more of these things tomorrow, and we'll talk about the final trade deadline results. A couple massive deals. And Abel, the prospect from Philly going to Minnesota for Duran, was a player that Arizona wanted bad in any potential Suarez deal. So I'm not saying that deal for Duran puts Philly out of the mix for Suarez. I leave nothing off the table when it comes to Dave Dombrowski and that outfit. They're uber aggressive and willing to pay the freight because they have the money. But I would think that maybe Suarez is more likely to go elsewhere, which could be good, means he ends up for the Brewers, or maybe it could be bad, maybe he ends up for the Cubs. Although I think I want to get out in front of this. I expect second half regression for Eugenio Suarez. Doesn't mean he'll suck, but I don't know that he's the exact player that we've seen so far this year. Doesn't mean he sucks. I just don't know that he's, the world beater 40 home run, through the first half type guy. We'll talk more about this tomorrow. We'll pick it up. We'll connect with Mike Clemens as well. Continue to talk about Packers and get back a little more into that. Is there drama between the coaches and the players over forcing fumbles and over fighting? I can't decide. We'll pick through it tomorrow.